And Chris, it feels like with Suarez potentially leaving that they've almost got to replace two roles with Messi potentially leaving as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a completely thankless task, isn't it? But we're going to broach it anyway, like you said. Yeah, he's their deadliest finisher and their best creator. So it's going to be difficult to replace him if he does leave with just one player. And given the general age profile of Barcelona's squad, something we've flagged as hugely problematic in the past, I think Barcelona should be recruiting between 22 and 27, preferably under 25. With Luis Suarez leaving as well, they're going to need another out-and-out goal scorer. So with that in mind, we've sort of lined up 2 or 3 options, haven't we? And one of them being Gabriel Jesus of Manchester City, someone that we've touted for Barcelona in the past because obviously he's behind Aguero at Manchester City. And I do believe he's probably got another gear in him. Big shoes to fill. Only Messi and Suarez took over 3 shots per 90, by the way, at Barcelona. And only 4 players managed to take 2 shots inside the box too. So whoever arrives in the striking department has got to be a mixture of volume. You know, they've got to sort of be able to create their own chances per se if the midfield doesn't sort itself out. And they've got to be deadly inside the box. Now, The Guardian claim that Jesus is a target. And, you know, despite being incredibly talented, he is still firmly second choice. And Aguero has just had that surgery, of course. He's coming back from injury. He's going to have plenty of time to rehabilitate. So Jesus' minutes at the start of the season might be limited. He's never started more than 21 league games in a single season. Having said that, he still had plenty of game time with at least 42 appearances in each of his 3 full seasons at Manchester City. 53 this term, in fact, with that injury to Aguero. So he's getting minutes, but they're spread across multiple competitions with Manchester City competing on all fronts, of course. But never been relied on as the main man. And now he's approaching, 23. He should be a little bit more established. Maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking, I need to be the main man wherever I go next. And if Messi left, there's obviously a huge vacuum. 2019-20 record, very good. 23 goals in 53 games, backing up 21 goals the season prior. 14 goals and 7 assists in 34 Premier League games, 21 of those being starts. And his underlying numbers are absolutely fantastic. 4.5 shots, 1.4 key passes, 2 dribbles. And the numbers of the forward line at Manchester City tend to be supercharged, don't they? Because of the way Pep's side play. But 1.1 expected goals and assists per 90, 19-20. That's the 3rd time in 4 seasons at City it's been over 1. The numbers would suggest he's not just a talent, but he's a special talent. And despite the fact, he's bemoaned for missing easier chances, isn't he? But what I try to implore to people on Twitter is, I'd much rather have my 21, 22-year-old striker, as he was then, when I remember having this debate, generating those opportunities, finding himself in those spaces, than not. I mean, you look at the sort of career, the trajectories of some of the most prolific strikers in Europe, top 5, and they're going to be underperforming their expected goals because they are finding those pockets of spaces. They are having high volumes of shots and so on and so forth. He is performing below expected goals. Apparently, he should have 56 Premier League goals instead of the 41 that he does have in the 102 league games that he's put up for City. But see the argument I just put forward a couple of minutes ago. Options 2 and 3 I've got down here is Anthony Martial. Bit more of a left field shout is Patrick Schick. So Martial, I think the opportunity to get him is probably gone now. They should have struck while Jose Mourinho kind of hung him out to dry. 24-year-old obviously had an awesome campaign last season, didn't they? 23 goals in 48 games, including 17 league strikes. His numbers a little bit below that of Gabriel Jesus, but you'd expect that on a Manchester United side who only really found their attacking feet, I guess, maybe in the second half of the season. Patrick Schick is someone we've kind of sounded out as someone with untapped potential, but it's now 2 or 3 clubs, isn't it, that haven't been able to ascertain that from him. So he's still recovering from that disappointing spell at Roma, where he only scored 8 goals in 58 games in all competitions. And he got 10 goals in 27 for RB Leipzig last term. I mean, he would be more of a squad player, more so someone that could contribute from the bench at first, perhaps filling that goals deficit left by Suarez. But there would have to be, I think the signing would have to be of the magnitude of Gabriel Jesus and then one or two others to even think about filling that deficit. Like I said, every suggestion in terms of filling Messi's boots feels stupid, but I think Jesus would be a really progressive marquee signing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's probably the sort of age profile, the sort of development that they need to go for, because we've said for so long that Barcelona need to stop buying players either in their prime or, you know, beyond their prime, even in the sort of shape of Antoine Griezmann, because it just causes you problems down the line when you're trying to then sell these players if they then don't work out. I mean, they were linked with Marcus Rashford a couple of years ago, Anthony Martial. These are players that were picked out by their analytics department, which, according to an article I read in The Athletic by Adam Crafton, the analytics department has been largely ignored. They've only had one meeting with the hierarchy all season long. And, you know, Barcelona, like Arsenal seemingly, are now going down more of a contacts route or an agent-led recruitment strategy. So, you know, all these players that we pick out probably won't end up there, really, if we're being brutally honest. But Pat, let's move on to the more creative side, because Chris has outlined some finishers that potentially could come in and improve Barcelona. But there's so much creativity that would go, you know, out of this side with Messi's departure. I mean, what do you make about who Barcelona could potentially bring in there?
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, Messi is still the creative hub of this team, like creating over 2 chances a game. He was the only player at Barcelona to do that last season. But I also think that this idea of like replacing Messi is just like it's a terrible one to get into your head. Like it's not something that you're really going to be able to do. And to be honest, it wouldn't actually be as much of a problem for Barcelona if they were solid in a bunch of other areas in the squad. Like, in a way, in attack, they actually do still have like some good materials there. Like, they've got Griezmann, who can play through the middle. They've obviously got Coutinho, who will come back from loan, who can fit into that number 10 role. And I'm not sure that anybody on the market is really going to be better for them than Coutinho in that role. And, you know, you look at Real Madrid. Real Madrid lost their star, and they've still got, obviously, tons of fantastic players. But the reason they can stay competitive is because it's a deep squad, and there are lots of different options in it. Barcelona, if they had a functional midfield and a functional defence, we could actually worry a lot less, because they could feasibly score 30 fewer goals next season and still be competitive at the top of the table. Atletico Madrid have done it. So, I don't know. Like, yeah, I can suggest some 10s. Like, there are guys like Joaquin Correa at Lazio who would be an interesting kind of versatile forward for them. Like, very good underlying numbers. He contributes about 5 shots and shots created per game, which is very good. He's a decent dribbler as well. He's still a reasonable age, kind of 26. And Luis Alberto as well has been linked with them too. A really good progressive passer. Though I also think that you'd hope Koeman will free up Frenkie de Jong to do a lot of that progressive passing. He might not be creating goals, but simply getting the ball into the final third like he did at Ajax will be extremely helpful, especially if he does have Coutinho, maybe a fit Dembele, and Griezmann playing in his preferred position there. To me, I just think you have to put all your eggs in the Jadon Sancho basket. If Jadon Sancho was willing to go to Man United, I think he'll be willing to go to Barcelona. Like, Barcelona are still going to be one of the top 3 clubs in Spain unless they go in and just shove a bunch of money out on like absolutely useless players, which is something they could well do. So I think that Jadon Sancho would solve a lot of their problems at once. Like, I mean, he's obviously got the ability to beat a man on the wing, which they need. He can play on that right-hand side, which kind of nobody in there is really going to be able to do at the moment. He's creative as well. He's extremely young. Like, I mean, these are all things that they are going to need. Plus, he is the sort of player who is potentially going to be a world beater. I mean, he's already, I'd say, one of the best attackers in the world. You imagine in 3 years' time that he's going to be one of maybe the 2 best players in the world. So to me, I think that that's the only thing that they can do to try and and approach, that superhuman level of output that Messi had. But in a way, like, I don't know if this is the sensible way to go about it. Like, I think what they need to be doing is taking some younger gambles. So if you do go and buy another striker, maybe also getting a young player, like they've brought in Trincao, that's the kind of sensible thing they need to do. Rather than going and spending huge money on a midfielder like Pjanic, they should maybe get one player who's first team ready for kind of 40 to 50 mil, and then also pick up somebody else in the kind of 20 mil range, which actually Real Madrid have consistently done over the last few years. Like, they brought in Dani Ceballos, like, for his buyout clause. They brought in Kovacic long before they needed him, and they did get some use out of him. They brought in Odegaard years ago, and now it looks like they're going to reap the benefit of that. If you do that, if you're making those moves gradually over time, then you will suddenly find that you have a surplus of talent, rather than kind of having to scrabble around to find not just depth options, but first team options and replacements for your stars all in one summer. Almost nobody can do that. It's impossible to rebuild the centre of a team on the fly and give it enough depth to compete in every competition. So they were linked to Mohamed Ihataren last summer from PSV. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think he's 18 years old, like, contributed 7 goals in 22 Eredivisie games, but his underlying stats are great, like 3 shots, 2.5 key passes, over 3 dribbles. Like, yes, that is in the Eredivisie, but he's exceptionally young. So if they say, right, Coutinho is going to be our starting 10 this summer, rather than just saying that and therefore leaving that position alone, I think the sensible thing would be for them to say, what does our plan look like for that position in 5 years' time? We're going to do things with the assumption in mind that our older players are going to continue to get older and at some point decline. So I think that really less important than just like the odd player they buy at Barcelona is the fact that they have an idea of what the team will look like this year, next year, in 5 years, in 6 years. Like, that to me will show that they have a plan. And to be honest, the problem all along has not been that that the tactics have been incorrect, though the tactics have been pretty bad. That Messi's had too much power, though Messi has had too much power. And ultimately, even that Messi's leaving. Like, those are not actually like the root problems at the club. The root problems are in planning and execution, and they've just never got those right.